This forum is sponsored by St. Paul AME Church, located at 251 North Upper Street in Lexington. The Reverend Dr. Robert A. Strode is the pastor. The COVID-19 pandemic, we all know, has been a challenge like no other we have experienced in our recent history. It is a human crisis touching every area of our lives, destroying livelihoods and weakening the foundation of our communities. It has exposed and exploited risks, not only to our health, but to our economies and societies and to our future. As a result, we have been required to make changes in our businesses, our personal lives, and in our mindsets and goals. This virtual community forum today presents us with a platform to learn, exchange ideas, and share information and experiences. I hope it will also inspire you to share information with other people in our communities, our churches, our workplaces, and especially our underserved population who may yet be uninformed. The goal is to equip us with tools to continue to move forward together, to slow the spread of this COVID-19 pandemic for ourselves and for our loved ones, for our communities, and for our future. We will now have prayer by Miss Diane Payne.
May we bow our heads. All wise, true, and merciful Father, thank you, Jesus, for all that you have done, doing, and going to do. Thank you, Jesus, for allowing us to assemble virtually to take part in this COVID-19 forum. Let something be done or said that will help us understand and make the right choice when it comes to this vaccine, to ask questions that will help us to gather information that will help us to make the right decisions when it comes to the vaccine. Be with us. Guide us as we go from day to day. Thank you, Father, for all you do. Amen, amen, and amen.
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 Amen. Thank you so much, Miss Strode. Miss Payne, I'm sorry, because now I do want to introduce our forum moderator, Miss Shelby G. Strode. Miss Strode is the First Lady of St. Paul AME Church, and she is an exhorter for the AME Church. She's a native of Lexington and a graduate of Henry Clay High School. She attended Midway College and is retired from Kentucky State University. Please join me in virtually receiving our forum moderator, Miss Shelby Jean Strode. Miss Strode.
Thank you so much, Sister Bessie. Thank you for all your kind words. The feeling is always mutual. I am just blessed, and I want to thank Sister Payne for that beautiful prayer. Good afternoon to everyone. We're delighted that you have joined us. And I'm delighted that I get to serve as your moderator for this COVID-19 panel discussion. Ms. Jackson and her team have done an awesome job in putting this together. So if we can give them a virtual hand clap or a hand raise, that would be wonderful. They understand that teamwork makes the dream work. Today, we have some excellent panelists who are going to share their expertise in discussing COVID-19. We have so many questions, so many things that we don't understand. So it is my pleasure to introduce them to you. I will do this in alphabetical order. And in doing that, ladies come first. We have with us Miss Casey Allen Bryant. She began her nursing, she received a BSN from the University of Kentucky, and that happened in 2000. She began her nursing career as an intern for the UK Good Samaritan Nursing Center, focusing on community and school health. She also serves as a member of the Lexington Fayette County Health Department Board of Health and the Mayor's Alliance Committee on Substance Abuse. She is currently a lecturer and clinical instructor for the public health nursing course. Her aim is to teach students the principles of public health nursing through service learning. Welcome to you. We will come back to you for your presentation. Good to have you here with us. Next, we have Mr. Chris Ford. Mr. Chris Ford is a commissioner of the Department of Social Services for the Lexington Fayette County Urban Government. Mr. Ford holds a BS from the University of Kentucky and a Master's of Public Administration from Western Kentucky University. Also, he is remembered by many in the community from his role playing football for the University of Kentucky. Go Wildcat. Okay. Well, here it says Brother Ford is a member of historic St. Paul AME Church, Lexington, Kentucky. Welcome, Mr. Ford, and thank you for coming to share your expertise with us. Next, we have Mr. Michael Holmes. He's a native of Mobile, Alabama, and he currently serves as a member at historic St. Paul AME Church in Lexington, Kentucky. In January of 2013, Brother Holmes attended Whitney M. Young Job Corps for 6 months, where he earned a trade in pharmacy tech. He transitioned to Kentucky State University, go Thoroughbreds, where he graduated with a major in sociology in 2017. In December of 2020, he graduated from the University of Kentucky, another Wildcat, with a master's degree in rehabilitation counseling and mental health. He currently serves as a behavioral health associate with New Vista, formerly known as bluegrass.org. As a behavioral health associate, Michael Holmes provides therapeutic services to individuals with serious mental illness. Welcome, Mr. Holmes. It's good to have you. We'll come back to you for your presentation. Thank you for coming. Next, we have Senator Reginald Thomas. He serves as chair of the Minority Caucus of the Senate. He is an attorney and professor at Kentucky State University. Kentucky State is all in the house. He is a graduate of Dartmouth College. He holds a Juris Doctorate from Harvard University. He is a member of historic St. Paul African Methodist Episcopal Church. Let's put our hands together for everybody. Thank you for being here, Senator Thomas. Now that I have introduced our esteemed panelist, we will hear from you for your presentation. And we can do this in alphabetical order. We will start with Ms. Allen, I believe. Yeah, we'll start with Ms. Casey Allen Bryant for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can I share my screen?
Ms. Bryant would like to share her screen.
I don't want to bore you guys too much, but I am a lecturer, so we do things in a certain way.
Okay.
Okay. I just want to kind of talk to you all today a little bit about some of the vaccine disparities that we are experiencing both in Kentucky and nationally. And as you know, the major vaccines that we have available in our area in the United States is the Pfizer and the Moderna. And some of the causes of vaccine disparities that we are experiencing are availability. That unfortunately, we only get so much allotted per week, both at the state level, and then that trickles down, of course, to our local level. We also have transportation issues. Right now, people do need to be able to go to the site to receive their vaccine. We also have some technology related barriers in terms of, internet for online signups, or not being able to use the internet as well. We also have some lack of knowledge about vaccine or how to access, where to go, how to sign up. And then other reasons that we've heard many about, a distrust of the healthcare system. And those are largely due to historical reasons, like the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, where our African-American men in the rural South had syphilis back in the 30s and early 40s, and were not treated with the current medication at the time, which was penicillin. We also have some perceived issues or events seen in the media. For example, we had the doctor that documented her experience with COVID in the hospital. She's an African-American doctor, and she talked about how the staff were not taking her seriously in the treatment that she was receiving, and how it was not up to par. And here she was, an actual doctor, and being treated that way. And then we just have sometimes we have distrust with the healthcare system because of our patients or our acquaintances have had past experiences where maybe they experienced prejudice in the healthcare system. There's also false information about the vaccine. People are hesitant about the speed of the vaccine development. And some people are even in a disbelief because of the COVID impact. I want to show this kind of slide here, and just tells you that where we are in our country in terms of people getting their vaccines. And we have a lot who said that they would get it, or they definitely would not get it. So it's changed a little bit from December to January, but we still have a lot of folks out there that are still hesitant on getting the vaccine. And in particular, I want to talk about our African American community, because out of this national survey that was just done last month, only 38% of African Americans have either received the vaccine or know someone who has. And that's in stark contrast to our Caucasian Americans, who are at a 51% level. And I'll end my share for that. So I like to have graphics, sorry, so that you guys can kind of see what's kind of going on. But I'm definitely here to advocate for the COVID vaccine, as well as answer, of course, any questions you have about the vaccine and or COVID itself.
Thank you, Ms. Bryant. You've done a wonderful job, and we will be coming back. And thank you for the information that you have shared with us. Most valuable. Our next presenter, who has been introduced, Mr. Michael Holmes. Okay.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Once again, I'm Michael Holmes. And today I will be presenting to you the connection between mental health and COVID-19. And I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay, can everyone see this?
Yes, we can see that.
Okay. Well, first, I would like to thank First Lady Shelby Strode and Pastor Strode for allowing me to speak before you all today and to present to you all. It's such an honor to be able to advocate for those with mental illness and disabilities. Okay, so first I would like to just share a little background about the two programs that I've worked for with New Vista. And the first one I worked for about a year and a few months, I'll say, it's called the Assertive Community Treatment Team. The Assertive Community Treatment Team serves individuals with serious mental illness who are most vulnerable to homelessness, incarceration, and hospitalization. And also, just to let you all know, I'm not reading this word by word, but I'm just going to give a brief summary of the important points. Some of the services provided are psychiatry, nursing, therapy, case management, housing, supported employment, and peer support. The ACT team is person-centered and focuses on increasing the individual's ability to meet self-defined goals, increase skills, and gain confidence to maintain long-term mental health recovery. And the program that I'm currently working with is called Therapeutic Rehabilitation Program. In the Therapeutic Rehabilitation Program, it consists of group settings and one-on-one counseling sessions as well. We use psychiatric rehabilitation techniques that focus on learning daily living skills, developing emotional regulation, and improving interpersonal skills. So pretty much with the ACT team, and I'll go back to the ACT team for a minute. So with the ACT team, the psychiatrists, the nurses, the therapists, case managers, supported employment specialists, and peer supports, all of those individuals bring their services to clients. So instead of clients coming to the office, the employees pretty much go to the client's homes or nursing homes, wherever the clients are during the time to provide those services. Then going back to TRP, which is Therapeutic Rehabilitation Program, clients are transported or they may transport themselves to the office to the groups that we have each day of the week. So during those programs, pretty much clients are able to set goals, have recreation activities, and also learn different psychoeducation topics such as anxiety, depression, coping skills, different things to help them develop their mental health in their personal lives. Some of the vulnerable populations for COVID-19 are people with pre-existing mental health conditions, healthcare workers helping with the response to COVID-19, people with disabilities who require specialized diets, medical supplies, assistance from caregivers, and other accommodations. So I would like to share a few coping skills because I've discovered that since COVID-19 has existed, a lot of individuals have been affected in different areas of their lives, including myself. So I would just like to share a few helpful coping skills to everyone. So one thing that we would need to do to help us during this time is to limit our information intake. And some of the sources that I recommend are U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, U.S. Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, and World Health Organization. Then next, we will want to stay connected with others. With COVID-19, there comes quarantining. So that means that we have to isolate. Many who feel scared, angry, or sad find that they seek distance. The isolation required for managing this virus is another obstacle to staying connected. So a few ways to stay connected is by text, phone, or video chat. Then another coping skill is to maintain your routines. Try to keep your routines as you are able. For example, Get up and eat at your regular time every day. Get dressed even if you are working from home. If your everyday tasks require some changes, incorporate some new routines. For example, you could do meditation or make a phone call to a loved one. Then the next thing that we will want to do is to take care of our bodies. Focus on eating healthy, drinking water, sleeping, exercising, and keeping on top of any medical conditions. And you may wonder, well, what if I know someone who needs mental health services? And you may wonder, how can I get in contact with someone with New Vista? So if you need help and you are experiencing a crisis, you can call the 24-hour helpline at 1-800-928-8000. New Vista helpline calls are answered by crisis counselors who are trained to assist those in need. Counselors ensure prompt attention to your situation and explore possible solutions. We talk to callers and ask questions to see what help is needed. Then we began planning to help you immediately. The New Vista Helpline provides crisis services for mental health, substance use, and intellectual and developmental disability emergencies. Individuals and families can make appointments and access services for mental health, substance use, and intellectual and developmental disability.
Well, thank you, Mr. Holmes. Thank you so much. And we will come back to you as well, because we know that sometimes mental health counseling is kind of labeled as taboo, especially within the African American community. So I'm sure that we will come back and discuss that. Thank you so much for your presentation. Now, our last presenter, Senator. Oh, I am so sorry. Thank you. That's why I am so glad that Pastor Strode is sitting right beside me. Thank you. Next, our next presenter is Mr. Chris Ford.
Thank you, Ms. Strode, and good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank Historic St. Paul AME, Reverend Strode and Ms. Strode, and the panel organizing committee for putting together this panel and for inviting me to participate. And I'm also very thankful that we have our viewing audience and guests to join this conversation. I'll be sharing just my thoughts here from local government, and that I believe we have a key role in the battle against the pandemic. And our mayor, the Honorable Linda Gordon, has really led that charge. We haven't done it alone, of course, but as a registered nurse, I believe she is really important to our team of how important it is to build partnerships to fight this pandemic and keep our community safe. And so on that note, I would like to salute our governmental partners at the federal and state level, to Senator Thomas particularly, applaud the work that Governor Andy Beshear and Dr. Stephen Stack over at Kentucky Public Health have provided. We're also optimistic about the rollout of the Biden-Harris administration and their focus, laser focus on helping America defeat the pandemic. Again, I mentioned that I'm honored to join the discussion that I'm sure will be full of resources, information, challenges and opportunities, and hopefully solutions in our response to COVID-19, as we are a community of moving forward together. And so I'll begin just to highlight my perspective again on 3 points. I don't have a screen share or a PowerPoint, but just some opening comments framed on the health crisis, the economic fallout, and social justice. And beginning with the health crisis, Lexington Fayette Urban County Government, LFUCG, again under Mayor Gordon's leadership and in partnership with the Urban County Council, our local health department that Casey and I serve on for a few years now, and Lexington's regional healthcare system leaders have all been active on both fronts from the very beginning. In regards to testing, I think it's safe to say that our community is a leader, and we're very fortunate to have the resources and the availability to COVID testing. The mayor, amongst one of the many things, has stood up a mayor's mobile neighborhood testing program. Over a dozen sites across our community, combination of parks, schools, and churches, all in the attempt to get out to underserved and diverse communities. I know a lot of our attention now continues to be on testing, but vaccine distribution. I'm very fortunate here in social services is that we have a senior center, a Lexington Senior Center, and we've been again working very closely with the health department to register folks in phases 1A and 1B, seniors over the age of 70, who might have barriers in accessing the electronic registration platforms that Casey mentioned in her presentation. So we've been reaching out on the phones and making sure we can 1A and 1B, seniors over the age of 70, who might have barriers in accessing the electronic registration platforms that Casey mentioned. Sorry about that. I'll continue. So our senior center is really working. We're very fortunate to work with recently announced UK Healthcare. We'll have a series of pop-up clinics in minority communities. The first one was yesterday over at Kingland. And the next 3 weekends, First Baptist Bracktown, Shiloh Baptist Church, and the Charles Young Center, again, focusing on underserved and trying to make it more equitable distribution. Then there's also a local campaign, a public awareness campaign that's titled, Let's Do This. And again, to build that public confidence in the safety of the vaccine. In addition to the health crisis, we all know in the church communities across always been a key part of the social safety net, the economic hardship that this pandemic has caused families and households and businesses. So just a few partnerships to highlight is that the Coronavirus Response Fund was lifted by the United Way of the Bluegrass and the Bluegrass Community Foundation. And our government has been a great supporting partner of them. They've raised over $1 million in investments to local community organizations to help our families address basic human needs and services. Local nonprofit agencies have been on the front lines in serving those most at need during the pandemic, as have our churches and faith-based communities such as St. Paul and others in our community. The biggest crisis that I think we're facing right now, as I come to a close, is housing instability. Even before COVID, affordable housing has been a challenge for Lexington in our community, and the pandemic has only exacerbated that crisis. So our focus remains on providing rental and utility assistance to residents who face eviction and displacement as a result of the associated economic impacts to household finance or lack thereof. We know that being home is one of the safest places you can be as we continue to fight against the infectious spread. And so we don't need folks, we don't want folks displaced and the other challenges that presents. So just a very quick update. To date, nearly 1,500 Lexington households have received a total of just over $4 million in rental and utility assistance. And that's a combination of federal, state, and local resources. And in addition, we have recently been just awarded here at City Hall $9.6 million additionally from the U.S. Department of Treasury. And we hope to deploy that to help families stay in their homes. As it relates to business and commerce, the government, in strong partnership with the council and the Chamber of Commerce, has also provided assistance and grants funding to keep local, small and minority businesses afloat. And last but not least, our community has forged through this pandemic environment during a time of great social unrest and heightened calls for racial equity. Earlier this summer and this fall, Mayor Gordon assembled nearly 70 community members to serve on the Mayor's Commission of Racial Justice and Equality. The commission's report presented to us last fall included 54 recommendations, including several which focused on health disparities that we think will be important to get us through this pandemic environment and to help our community be prepared for future challenges that may come up in the future. So just a few of my thoughts, Ms. Strode. I'm delighted to be with the panel and look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Ford, and we're delighted that you're here. And I especially, and there are others who I'm sure join with me in saying that we appreciate hearing what you have to offer as far as programming for senior citizens. Even though I'm not 70 yet, it's right around the corner. It's right around the corner. And for those who have already turned that wonderful corner, it's really good to know that those those programs are in place. So thank you. I'm sure that we're going to have a lot of questions in regards to that, as well as some other things that you have mentioned. Thank you. Wonderful job. Thank you so much. Next, we have Senator Reginald Thomas. And as you all know, I've already introduced everyone. So Mr. Thomas will come now with his presentation.
Well, thank you, Sister Strode, and thank you,
Welcome.
Pastor Strode. I want to say how much I appreciate both of you leading the effort and having St. Paul host this very important forum. And again, also want to also extend my appreciation to Sister Bessie Jackson,
Yes.
and her daughters, Priscilla and Paula, for being the panel organizing committee and getting this again distinguished panel together to talk about this critical issue in our society, and that is the COVID-19 pandemic. What I want to focus on in the time that I have is on vaccine distribution, because that has been left to the states with the help of the federal government. As many of us know, President Biden, once he assumed office, has said he wants at least, at a minimum, 100 million vaccinations in 100 days, and he's going to exceed that. And so the distribution comes from the federal government now, and that's been a sped up process now, a more efficient process, unlike what we saw previously. But the states still have to administer that. Chris mentioned Governor Beshear, and Governor Beshear, in my opinion, has done a tremendous job in making sure that we get the vaccines out to people, because that's the only way we're going to get back to a sense of normalcy, to herd immunity, is by getting vaccines in the arms of individuals. And to that point, I want to tell everyone listening today that going into last week, Kentucky was the 8th leading state in the nation. Out of all 50 states, including the District of Columbia, Kentucky was the 8th leading state in terms of vaccinating its citizens per capita. We were at 16% of all Kentuckians had been fully vaccinated. Now, obviously, with the snow last week and the inclement weather we faced, we may drop a little bit. We don't know. We'll have to look at the numbers. They'll come out again tomorrow. But again, we've done a better job than the majority of states in getting our people vaccinated. What that means, in essence, is that of those 16 and under, and I say 16 and under because that's who the vaccines are eligible to be given to. They've not been proven safe for those under 16. But for those 16 and under, 562,000 Kentuckians to date have been vaccinated. That's about 16% of our population. So we exceed the national average in terms of getting our people vaccinated. And the two major vaccines, as all of you know, are the Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna vaccine. And both of those vaccines have been proven highly effective. They're at a better than 90% effective rate. And so they're very safe. And there have been almost no instances of people having any kind of repercussions or ill effects from the vaccine. A third vaccine, Johnson & Johnson, is scheduled to get approved by the FDA on Wednesday. It goes before the FDA, the U.S. Federal Drug Administration, on Wednesday for approval, and expected to get approval, and then that will come forward. And then there are other vaccines that are in the final stages of trials, and we may see others come on board as well. So we will have plenty of vaccines available. As Chris mentioned, we now have just about finished the Group 1B, those 70 and over. We have completed here in Kentucky now all vaccine distribution to first responders. That includes doctors, nurses, EMTs. We've completely vaccinated all people in nursing homes, and those in full care home health facilities. All teachers have been vaccinated as well. So we can open up our schools and get our children back into schools. And we're just about finished with those 70 and over. It's anticipated that really by the beginning of March, we'll be able to get to our group 1C, those 60 and older, and begin vaccinating them. So Kentucky has done better again than most states in getting people vaccinated. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the fact that, how are these vaccines effective when we're now facing new variants that are entering the country? There's the UK variant that's come from Britain that we've had now about 7 cases identified here in Kentucky with this UK variant, which is a more virulent form of COVID-19. And by what I mean by virulent, I mean it's highly more infectious, more contagious, and as a result, more harmful, and the likelihood of going to hospital is more serious. And then there's a South African variant, which is even more serious than the UK variant, but we haven't seen any cases here in Kentucky as of yet. And the science tells us, even with the UK variant and with the South African variant, that the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines are still very effective, highly effective, again, in that 90% range against these new variants. Now, President Biden has said that he wants to see more genetic sequencing, more testing against the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines with these variants, but they still so far have been proven to be very safe. And the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, again, is better than 90% effective. So our focus now in Kentucky, and I'll close with this, is to continue to be one of the leading states in the country in getting people vaccinated. We believe here in Kentucky that by the end of July, anyone who's wanted a vaccine can get a vaccine. That we will have distributed all vaccines to everyone in Kentucky who will want one. We're pushing for that hard date by the end of July to get everyone vaccinated. So you'll know, our shipment this week will be over 71,000 vaccines will be coming in Kentucky. That number will only increase as President Biden and his leadership team distributes more vaccines. But now we've opened up vaccines here to, if you can go to Walgreens, you can go to CVS, you can go to your public health centers. As Chris mentioned, you can go to UK. So there are many different places where you can get vaccine. Chris also talked about Governor Beshear's efforts to make sure that the African-American community is vaccinated. Charles Young Center has been a vaccination site. This Thursday for those listening, Governor Beshear will be at Shiloh Baptist Church, opening up a vaccine administration site there at Shiloh Baptist Church. So Governor Beshear believes that you have to meet people where they are, and it is important that we meet the Black community where they are to get them vaccinated again, so that they can be insulated from this COVID-19 environment, and be immune from this horrible, dreaded this virus. So I'll stop there, and Sister Strode, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Senator Thomas. It did my heart good to hear you say that Kentucky, if I heard you correctly, you said we're the 8th leading for vaccinations. Is that
as of last week? As of last week, we were the 8th best state in the nation in terms of vaccinating our citizens.
I think we need to kind of give ourselves a hand. Kentucky is leading. And thank you for your hard work, because we see you on television. We hear you in the news. We know that you're out there fighting. We know that's what you're doing. We're going to thank all of our panelists. Now, I want to say that when I introduced each person, I didn't even get a tip or a touch of the iceberg of all of the things that these people have done in life. And I just sat and looked at your bios, and it was just simply amazing. So the only reason I didn't read more about you is because we wanted to give people more time to ask questions. Now we're at that point. So we're getting ready for questions and answers, Q&A. Now I want you to listen carefully to our rules. You will be able, if you have a question on Zoom, to type in your question, or you will be able to raise your hand. Now, don't feel like the Lone Ranger if Zoom, all these other things kind of make you a little nervous, because we're all learning here. So don't feel like you're left out. So if you are able to see at the bottom of your screen, reactions, can you see reactions? You can click on that and raise your hand, and our moderators will see you. I know we have Ms. Brandy Robinson and Linda Miller. We have a whole bunch of folk who are working behind the scenes. So now we are open for questions and answers. Do we have any questions? Brandy, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do.
All right.
One of our questions. Our first question is for Senator Reginald Thomas. This pandemic has exposed the lack of access to technology, especially to our senior population, when it came to scheduling for testing and vaccinations. Is the government looking at ways to bridge this gap? And if so, how?
Thank you for that question, Brandy. And the answer is yes. And let me point out what we're doing in this budget year. Let me explain what's going on with our budget. Kentucky historically has had a 2-year budget, and we've done that in even numbered years. But because the pandemic hit us in March of last year, the legislature took what I thought was the wise approach of only adopting a 1-year budget. Okay, which means that we're in an unusual situation this year, having to come up with a part 2 of our budget in an odd number year. So that's what we're going through now. I want everyone to know that despite COVID, this is going to be a very good budget year for Kentucky. We're looking at having about $500 million in excess money. We've been able to weather the COVID environment a lot better than most states here in Kentucky. And again, I attribute that to the leadership of Governor Beshear and the way he's managed this COVID pandemic here in Kentucky. As I've said many times on the Senate floor and in speaking with the news media, Kentucky is one of the leading Southern states in terms of having the fewest number of cases and the fewest number of deaths. And you have to say that Governor Beshear is the person primarily responsible for those excellent results. Okay. Now to the question at hand, Brandy. Governor Beshear has proposed, and we had discussions about this prior to him submitting his budget. He's proposed $50 million in money to go just to broadband resources to finish broadband across this state, Brandy, from Pike County all the way to Paducah, and in the hollers and in the rural areas in between. Okay, what that will mean is that every area in Kentucky will have access to the internet, access to broadband, and be able to be connected with the entire world. The truth of the matter is, Brandy, today, if you don't have internet, you don't exist in America. That's how much we are dependent upon the internet and broadband for everything we do. And we've seen how important that is, from telehealth to non-traditional instruction to commerce. And so we're going to finish the job this year here in Kentucky and have full broadband across the state. And that also includes those urban areas where certain underprivileged and underserved communities don't have adequate broadband resources. We're going to change that here in Kentucky. So you will see this time next year, Kentucky being one of the leading states and having broadband access to all its citizens.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Now, we want to be fair to everyone. And I did not mention that if you are a Zoom participant on the phone, you will be given an opportunity to ask a question. You may press *6 to unmute and *9 to raise your hand. And the monitor team one of our monitoring team member will make sure that your question is answered. Also, we are on Facebook and YouTube as well. We just type your question in the comments section. Thank you so much. Do we have any questions? Linda Miller.
Yes, we have a couple of questions. The first question was for Michael Holmes, and they want to know, is there a discernible difference between the two vaccines? Oh,
Mr.
excuse me.
Holmes, did you please unmute yourself? Oh, he can't hear me.
Excuse me, that one was for Reggie. I apologize. That one was for
Okay,
Reggie.
it's for Reggie. Okay. Senator Thomas, the question is for you. Would you repeat the question? Does it need to be repeated?
No, I understand the question.
Okay.
This is an excellent question. And again, I want to share everyone the science behind these vaccines. Okay. Let's talk about Pfizer first. You know, people have heard about how you have to have extremely cold storage for Pfizer, 70 degrees, minus 70 degrees centigrade to use a vaccine, and how that has been handicapped our distribution. Well, again, here that is true to some degree, but here in Kentucky, what we've been able to do is use the resources of our state universities and use the resources of our urban public health centers to meet those refrigeration requirements so that we can distribute the vaccine in a timely fashion. Here lately, it's been reported that Pfizer has improved the vaccine now so that it can be stored just at below freezing, minus 32 degrees Fahrenheit, which will obviously even increases access even further. The Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines have a effective rate about 95%. You can't find a vaccine in this country, smallpox, influenza, that has a better effective rate. So those rates are highly effective. I want to go back to something that Casey and Chris talked about that I think deserves further discussion here. Okay, we understand the history of Blacks and medical treatment and how we've been abused and mistreated historically, and that is certainly true. Okay, but even with that said, everyone understands how this COVID virus has impacted us, and when I say us, I mean African Americans, disproportionately in a harmful way. And I would encourage everyone to get this vaccine. It works. It is very effective, and we should all go out and get it. And I think it was Casey pointed out that the African American rate of vaccination is about 38% nationally, and she's right about that. And that's why Governor Beshear is coming to Lexington, coming to the Black community, coming to Shiloh Baptist Church this Thursday, again, to encourage all of us to get it. Now, the Johnson & Johnson rate is, again, about 90%. You know, there have been some questions about the Johnson & Johnson test because right now, Johnson & Johnson only requires one vaccine, whereas Moderna and Pfizer only require two, whereas Moderna and Pfizer require 2 shots. But when there's been talk, and this will come up on Wednesday before the FDA, of Johnson & Johnson being recommended to have a 2 vaccine a test, which will probably even increase its rate even more. But Johnson & Johnson right now is about 85 to 90% effective. So Johnson & Johnson is highly effective. So these vaccines are very effective. And so that's what the science tells us. That's what their studies and their trials have shown us. And again, there's no reason why, when offered it, we should not take these vaccines.
Thank you.
Can I add to that, please?
Sure.
Yes.
I do want to point out that although they do have very similar efficacy rates, that there is a time difference in the 2 doses. And so that's why it's important, because I've had people say, well, I got my initial shot here. can I now go XYZ place to get your second shot? It is so important that you go to the same place to ensure that you receive the same vaccine. Although they do have the similar efficacy rates, they do have the same motion of action, they are still two different vaccines. You would not take lisinopril for blood pressure one day and low pressure for blood pressure the next day, right? It's the same thing with these vaccines. And there is a difference in time spans as well. The Pfizer vaccine, there's the 3 weeks between the two. And then with the Moderna, there's 4 weeks or 28 days between the two. So I do want to point that out.
Thank you, Ms. Bryant.
Mhm.
I understand that we have loads of questions, and Ms. Brandy Robinson just informed me that there are questions on Breeze as well. So Ms. Brandy Robinson, we're ready for our next question.
Linda had two.
Yes, ma'am. This is for Senator Thomas as well. I'm concerned about the children not being vaccinated age 16 and under.
Well, this goes back again to, let me go back to the science, because the science has dictated, how we've approached this whole vaccine. And Casey's certainly free to add in, after I get finished. What we've seen from COVID-19 is those 16 and under are rarely get seriously ill from this. The number of deaths from those 16 under are nominal. Now we've had one death here in Kentucky, but very few deaths. Those that are hospitalized tend to survive. So we've made a decision not to test the vaccine or make it available for those under the age of 16 because they're just highly unlikely to get ill from this. And so that's the reason why the vaccines that are out, the Moderna, the Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, are only eligible for those age 16 and older. If Casey, you want to add something to that, I would welcome that.
Yes, I do. So we are currently having, well, not we, I say we as in public health people, there are current clinical trials for children, so to speak, 16 and younger. And so I anticipate that at some point in time that FDA will approve for children, but as currently, no.
All right. Would any other panelists like to speak on this question before we move on? Thank you. I understand, Linda Miller, you said you had 2 more questions.
Yes, this one was directed to Michael Holmes, and they wanted to know, is there an oversight to ensure everyone is being treated fairly and equitably? And then another question was asking again to Michael about the suicide rates. Have they gone up?
So the suicide rates. Now, I have received notice that there were 2 former clients who I worked with in the past who have experienced overdoses. Now, I don't know if those were suicide related, if those were intentional or not, but as I mentioned in my presentation about things such as isolation and not being able to keep in touch with loved ones, I have seen an increase in the death rate of individuals with mental illness. And those may not be suicide related, but they may just be due to physical health reasons. And which, physical health are usually at a low point for those with mental illness due to not having resources or not knowing how to take care of themselves, not knowing how to seek help, or just not being aware of what they're going through. So to answer that question, I wouldn't say that they're suicide related, but there is an increase in the death rate.
Oh, thank you.
And
And
what was the
they
other
also
question?
wanted to know if there was are the people being treated fairly and equitably here in Lexington?
Well, I'll tell you this, and I'll be very honest with you. Well, right now I work in Richmond, but as a case manager in the past, there have been some challenges. I think, before COVID-19 and after COVID-19, some people with mental illness, well, the population itself, I would say, have not been treated fairly for the most part. And I would say that because, a lot of people with mental illness are considered as outcasts. They are looked upon as, those people over there, and it's a world of it, it's a world by itself. But, based on my experience, I don't think that those individuals were treated or being treated fairly based on, the time that I've worked with them.
Thank you. Another question was directed to Chris Ford, and I noticed he put the information on the chat, but for people who are not visible to the chat, Mr. Ford, could you please repeat the locations of the vaccination centers here in Lexington? Thank you.
Yes, gladly. The UK Healthcare is going to have a series of weekend pop-up clinics. The first one occurred yesterday, and that was at Keeneland, and it was designed primarily for the Hispanic farm working community. In the next 3 weekends, successively will be First Baptist Brighttown, that's February 27th, Shiloh Baptist, which is on March 6th, and then Charles Young Community Center, which is on Saturday, March 13th. Now, just a few more details I'll add, Ms. Strode and panel members, there are going to be 500 doses that are going to be provided. But in UK Healthcare, they are managing what I describe almost turnkey. So their team of medical providers are going to be the ones administering the doses, actually operating the clinic. And then their support team will be in charge of the registration process. And so each of the communities, I think, are going to be challenged to share the link to the email. It's not going to be walk up or day of service. It will be a registration process that UK Healthcare will manage. But however, our community has an opportunity to make sure that that information is placed out there and folks can get access to the link and register. Then also, lastly, my understanding is that each of those 4 sites, the residents who are receive that first dosage, they will return to that same site 4 weeks later for their booster shot.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. There's also a question that's been brought to my attention, and I need to direct that question to Ms. Casey Allen Bryant. Will the vaccination keep us from catching the COVID-19 virus?
I mean, yes, that is. So when we talk about efficacy rates and you hear us say 95% and above, there is, if you receive the 2 vaccines at the appropriate time lapse. So for Pfizer, it is 3 weeks. For Moderna, it is 4 weeks. Then there is a 95% chance that you will not catch and develop COVID-19.
Great, thank you, Ms. Bryant.
Mm-hmm.
Brandy, you have questions. I noticed that there are many questions in our chat.
Yes. This is directed towards everyone on the panel. Why is it that caregivers are not allowed to be vaccinated along with the person that they are caring for? Are they looking into making special provisions?
Good question. Casey, you want to take that first? You want me to take that?
Well, I'll take it. I mean, there are so many individual circumstances, and we would love to have all doses available for every single citizen so that when they come and they call and we can get them vaccinated. But unfortunately, we cannot. When you have such a product in demand and the supply is not 100% available at one time, we have to use a matrix. Otherwise, it's complete chaos. And so we know that those that are the 70-year-olds and older, they have more risk factors. And so we're those 1Bs, we've got to get them in first before we can move on to the caregivers, unless the caregivers are also that 70 and above.
All right, thank you, Ms. Bryant. Did anyone else need to speak on that question?
I just want to add something that we have done on occasion here in Kentucky, and that we have been sensitive to with regard to Brandy's point. We have on a few instances, where we've gotten permission from doctors, and we haven't done this a lot, But for those individuals who can document that they are caring for someone who is at high risk, 70 years of age or older, or who has significant pre-existing conditions, we have on occasion given vaccines to their caregivers. But again, this has required doctor's validation for us to do that. What we did start doing this week is with regard to child care workers, those who are taking care of children either through child care centers or through government daycare centers. We have started vaccinating those individuals because, as we've seen in this pandemic, children, while asymptomatic, often are carriers of this virus and give those to grandparents and elderly individuals and put them at risk. So we have started vaccinating child care workers, as part of our most recent group. So we are doing those three things. But again, I really suspect that by sometime in March, we'll be in that 1C category, because again, we've been very aggressive here in Kentucky in trying to get as many people vaccinated as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Senator Thomas. Would anyone else like to speak on this question before we move forward? I still see that we have some questions here. Brandy?
Yes, ma'am. This question is for Casey Bryant. I'm concerned about the variation of screening processes in medical facilities. Do you feel more confident with taking temperatures on site, by a cell phone technique, or by a survey by the patient themselves, assuming they are being honest?
Yeah, that topic has come up some, and people have texted me about it and said all they had me do was fill out a screen on my phone. And we do not have any documented outbreaks from someone who has filled out a survey through their phone. So I want to start with that. My personal, I would rather it be done on site, but that's not always feasible. But I do want to point out that there are not any documented cases of outbreaks of COVID related to someone who has brought it into a facility and they have done their screenings by some type of virtual method.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Bryant. Would any of our other panelists like to speak on this question? Okay, we will go to Linda Miller. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. Let's see. Hold on.
Well, while you're getting your questions together, I noticed that Brandy has some in the chat, and we'll come back to you, Miss Linda, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, Brandy, we have more questions?
Yes. This
right.
question is for Casey Allen Bryant. Is there a difference in the action of the different vaccines, Pfizer versus Moderna, and how does it affect the Black-brown race?
Is this person available so I can ask her for clarification? The different actions.
Ella Smith.
Miss Ella. I know she's on here.
I will unmute her.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Miss Ella.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Miss Ella.
I'm trying to talk while I was muted.
It happens to all of us. That's just fine. Okay.
Okay. The reason why I asked that question, somewhere along the way, I heard that the Pfizer was better for the African American as opposed to the Moderna.
That's a good question.
Is there any validity to it?
I've not heard that. I do know that both of their trials, that the various races and ethnicities were represented. And so that's what I would say. I have not heard that in terms of validity for African-American Moderna versus Pfizer. I have not heard anything like that.
So are they equivalent
What do you, in terms of equivalent, what do you mean?
ingredients? You know, do they have the same effect on everyone?
They both of them elicit the immune response, which is what we want them to do. And so that's the purpose of the vaccine, is to get your body to elicit an immune response. And
Okay.
they both do that.
Well, Jim, if I could just add to this, in any statements or communications you've heard that one of these vaccines is better than the other or worse for the other in terms of African Americans is just not true.
Yeah.
There's no documentation or studies or research reports that indicate that.
I know it's no research, but you know, you have a lot of things going around, so you have to be careful of how it impacts our race of people.
Absolutely.
Well, again, as I would stand by what Casey has said. There's no indication, Ella-Jean, at all that either one of these vaccines is less effective for African Americans. That is just not the case.
Okay.
And again, Ella-Jean, I want to encourage every African American to take this vaccine as soon as they can.
And so do I. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. That answered your question, Ms. Ella-Jean?
Yes.
They
Okay.
put it in the middle name.
Oh, excuse me?
I said, you guys put it in her middle name.
Well, we kind of do that because my name is Shelby Jean. So I just thought this would be my opportunity to just like get her in front of everybody. But you all are doing a wonderful job. And for those who have come in late, you weren't here when we welcomed you, but we're so happy that you're here and that you've taken time out of your schedules, your Zoom schedules, to be with us. Miss Linda Miller, are you ready with your question, please?
Ma'am, there are a couple here. One person asked, since Category 1C includes many Kentuckians, with those in the 1C, will they be prioritized within that category? And that goes to anyone.
Did you all understand the question, or do you need it repeated?
Yeah, Chris, why don't you take that first? You've been pretty quiet. Why don't you take that first?
Ms. Linda, can you repeat the question?
They asked, since Category 1C includes many Kentuckians, will those in the 1C be prioritized within that category?
You know, my thoughts on that is I'm not aware that there'll be any prioritization within the 1C category. But one of the responses I was going to make to the chat is, where can you go to sign up for a vaccine? And I think it's going to be incumbent upon us to make sure we share the information. And I'll put it in the chat here in just a minute, is that UK Healthcare has a website, visit ukvaccine.org. And then the health department is also continuing the vaccine, particularly those that are still 70 and above and have difficulty registering. In regards to the pop-up clinics, I think, again, it's making sure, I regret to say, and I hesitate to say, first come, first serve, but there is, in my opinion, there is a need for us to be as responsive in sharing information perhaps as we can. You know, I think that, I don't know if the other panelists might feel a little differently, but I think it'll be in just that much demand for, as the slots become available, folks will want to register for those.
Thank you. Another question was, who do we contact to register for the COVID vaccine vaccinations? Is there a telephone number that they should call if they're not computer savvy? I'm supposing they're thinking such as the Shiloh pop-up, where do they need to call in advance, and do they need to bring a driver's license? Casey.
There will be, I would think, on the mayor's website, because this is an activity, a drive that's coming out of their office. Chris, do you know what the exact website is for them to sign up for those pop-ups? I know that we're looking for each facility to distribute the registration link. So whether that will be accessible to the general public, I'm not quite sure. Chris, do you know?
I think you're heading in the right direction, Casey. I believe it's going to be the challenge of those respective institutions to help get that information out. They're almost somewhat managing the registration process. There's a link that UK Healthcare is going to provide, and then they're going to ask those congregations and those communities to help either get those registration slots filled or get that out for folks to be aware of. The one that is under the purview of City Hall will be the Charles Young Center. And we are going to work very closely with their advisory board and my office and the mayor's office to share that with as far as wide as we possibly can. And we will definitely make sure that that's available to the congregation at St. Paul, so you guys can get that information out as quickly as possible. But UK manages the link, and then our communities will help share that. And or if there's difficulty, we may have to help folks get registered that may need to get registered as well.
Thank you all so much. I'm going to ask Brandy. I see that there are questions still that have not been answered, and we're going to try to get in as many questions as possible. Brandy, could you please give us some more questions, please?
Yes. This question isn't directed towards anyone in particular. How is Fayette County handling distribution of the vaccine, especially getting the second shots? Also, what about the side effects, especially for those with underlying condition like Alzheimer's, since it has to be kept so cold? So if it accidentally defrosts and one is allergic to egg, swine, or yeast, should maybe you not take it?
Okay, that question is directed to anyone who would like to take that question first.
Can you read the second half of that? Because when you were saying
Yes.
XYD.
Sorry.
That's okay.
It says, since it has to be kept cold, so if it accidentally defrosts and one is allergic to egg, swine, or yeast, should maybe you not take it?
Right. Obviously, if you have an allergy to any of the ingredients, you should not take it. We do not want that and that allergic reaction.
All right. Would anyone else need to? All right. Well, Miss Linda Miller, do you have a question?
Yes, this one was to Michael Holmes. They want to tell him thank you for suggestions on dealing with stress at this time. How can we best support our peers because they are dealing with personal problems and now the patient's problems? And this is for Michael. How do we handle or help our peers?
Well, in regards to having problems, it depends on what type of problem it is. Since there's not anything in specific that was listed or named, I'll just name a few that I've noticed. Relationship problems and marriages, financial problems, be it, the problem of being isolated, and physical health. I would say to support another peer is to be as hands-on as possible, to be a listening ear to others. During these times, it's all about connection, staying connected to one another, because I've noticed that COVID has brought about, has brought about division, amongst pretty much everyone. Like, we all are not able to go to the places that we used to go. We're not able to do the things that we used to do. So I would say to support another person is by, staying connected, being a listening ear, and helping those individuals find the resources that they need. Whatever it is, I'm not sure what problems, we're referring to, But those are just a few that I've noticed.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Michael, would you unmute yourself? I would like to.
Okay.
Why is there such a taboo, especially within the African American community, about seeing a mental health counselor? I can remember growing up and hearing someone in the family saying, oh, you know, and I don't like to say people are crazy because mental health issues are serious, and they are seriously.
Yes, they are.
It is an illness. And
Yes.
I remember growing up hearing people say they just need to trust in the Lord. They don't need to
Yes.
talk to someone. How do we get beyond that type of thinking into knowing that, well, God moves through professionals?
Yes.
So could you please address that? How do we get away from that mode of thinking? A lot of us still have it.
Well, I'll say, well, you kind of answered the question within the question.
Okay, I did.
Yeah, you did. So I'll say this, you know, we go to the doctors, right? We see nurses, we go to the doctors, physical health doctors, right?
Yes.
Therapists, therapeutic services, mental health services. That's a form of, we're doctors too, in a way. You know, we're in the healthcare field as well.
Sure.
So it's just to change the mindset of, you know, looking at it like, you know, okay, just the same way that we depend on God to heal us through the doctors, we have to look at that the same way as we seek mental health services.
Yes.
And to know that just because you're seeking counseling, like you don't have to have a mental illness to seek counseling. You don't have to have bipolar depression, schizophrenia, or anything like that. We all deal with some type of symptom. You know, if I guarantee right now, if I was to ask everyone to raise their hand, if you ever experienced depression, anxiety, any type of stress, you know, we all experience stressors. So everyone could benefit from some type of counseling service. So it's to look at it that way, to make it plain and to say, hey, I go to the doctor, I take medication. You know, we're not just, just we're dependent on God, but we're not just saying, hey, God, if you want me to be healed, just heal me. I'm not going to take this medicine. I'm not going to do what my doctor says, right? But we listen to our doctors. Well, some of us do. And, we could do a lot better with that.
Right.
But it's really no different than a physical health doctor. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. So I said we have to change our mindset and knowing that God uses therapists as well.
Yes. Brandy, I'm sure we have other questions.
We do.
There.
This question is for everyone. Expand on the side effects that can result after taking vaccine 1 and vaccine 2. Is there a level of alert beyond what is considered routine that we should be aware of?
I'll start off with that one because I get this question a lot. Remember that the purpose of the vaccine is to get your body to say, hey, I can fight off this COVID vaccine. And so there's things that happen. I won't get too technical, but there's things that happen in your body when you receive these shots. And so with the first one, it's generally just right at the site. You're probably going to have a little bit of soreness, maybe some very temporary numbness that comes and goes, and that's probably about it. With the second one, now your body is reacting a little bit stronger. That's the whole point. We want to get you up to that 95%, right, that we've been talking about. And so it's a little bit stronger reaction. So now, not only do you might have a little bit of reaction at your site, which we give it in the arm, okay, but you also will have it probably some reaction that's kind of throughout your body. So maybe a headache, you might have fever, chills, some muscle ache, and that generally lasts about 24 hours, and then it's done. And that's a good sign, though. That's a sign that your body is taking that vaccine and doing what it's supposed to do, and it generally goes away after that.
Thank you. I'm going to go over to Ms. Linda Miller. You have questions?
Yes, ma'am. One of the questions was, if you have a procedure scheduled within the time frame of your vaccination, should you still get that vaccination?
I probably would not. Definitely in terms of other vaccines, we say give it 14 days. So if you get your COVID vaccine, do not get a vaccine, another type of vaccine 14 days before and 14 days after. And I would kind of use the same rule in terms of a procedure, just because you don't know how your body is going to react. And also some of those side effects that I talked to you about in terms of the fever and the headaches and whatnot. So I would definitely wait long enough to make sure that you're not going to have any kind of reaction to the vaccine.
Thank you.
Ms. Bryant. Ms. Linda, since we're over there with you, do you have another question?
I would like to make an announcement that Mr. Ford typed in. He gave a telephone number for people to contact the UK Healthcare in order to set up an appointment. If they have their pencils ready, this is 859-218-0111. And those are for people who aren't using the computer. And then for the health department, the telephone number is 859-899-2222.
Thank you.
And
Oh,
you're welcome. Another woman asked, on some of these pop-up sites, can you walk up and register?
Okay, who is that? Who can address that? Okay, Mr. Ford.
I think I can. Unfortunately, you cannot. And there was also another question in the chat from Ms. Dora. Do we know if there are any walk-up on-site registrations? And again, to my knowledge, not at this time. Everything is managed via online or telephone registration. And I would imagine that's due to the demand. I would imagine that's also due to the making sure that the priority and equitable distribution is there. But that doesn't mean it may not happen in the future, but I'm not aware of it at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ford. Would someone else like to address that?
Yeah, I just want to say, Chris is right. And I think where we are right now, because we're still rolling this out. I mean, we vaccinated now close to 20 million Americans, but we're still, we still got a long ways to go. We want to make sure that we know who's received the vaccine, register them, identify them. We're still at that stage right now. As we get more and more people vaccinated, probably we'll relax, some of those procedures. But I think that's where we are right now, and that's why we haven't done any walk-ups yet.
Okay, thank you, Senator Thomas. Ms. Brandy, there are other questions?
Yes. This question is for Chris Ford. So many businesses are closed now due to COVID-19. What role is our city government playing to help these businesses reopen or reorganize?
That's a great question. And just very briefly, I know we're approaching time. Our government, the Mayor's Administration and Urban County Council, as part of the last budget, I believe, they created a small business development grant program. I think the number from memory is $2.5 million. As you guys remember, the federal government had a PPP program, which was designed for small businesses. That money went very quickly, and there was a lot of concern that not a lot of small businesses or minority businesses has access to those. We partnered with the Chamber of Commerce for that small business stimulus program, and it was very successful. I think that we're also working very closely on not only the businesses, but the workforce. And again, that's why we've been working very hard to provide our rental assistance. Our Department of Social Services has a program for displaced workers. It's called RISE, Rental Hardship to Impacted Service Employees. Because at the onset of COVID, there were folks who they had their lunch pail, they were ready to clock in, and they couldn't because of the need to isolate and shelter at home. So there are ongoing discussions about how we support our economy and get it back going. Those are just a few examples.
And Brandy, if I can piggyback on that, you heard me mention some time ago that we're going to have a very favorable budget here in the state in the 21-22 cycle. Governor Beshear has proposed his budget, and that is still alive right now. A $220 million set aside for small business. And that money is going to be in the form of grants, as well as low interest loan, I say low interest, I mean below market interest loans, to help those businesses who've been sorely impacted by the pandemic, get them money so they can get restarted and get back to the level they were pre-pandemic. So that's a $220 million fund that's proposed in our budget. And I would say, Brandy, I think that will pass. Get back with me after March 30th, after the budget is passed, and I can tell you more about how you can access money in that budget.
Thank you, Senator Thomas. Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you, Senator Thomas. And as Mr. Chris Ford mentioned, we're getting close to 6:30 now. Miss Bessie Jackson has said, and she has instructed me, it's now 6:26, that as we get closer to 6:30, if you all are available, if we could go a few more minutes, would that be okay with our panel? How much longer would you all like to go? Maybe about 20 more minutes or 15? Could you help me out with this? What say you?
That's fine. 15, 20 minutes. I mean, that's fine.
15 to 20 more minutes? Okay, well, we will go back over. Did you get to finish, Senator Thomas?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Okay, would anyone like to add more to what Senator Thomas mentioned? Okay, let's go back over, and I am just so enjoying the team. Teamwork makes the dream work. We're gonna go back over to Ms. Linda Miller. Do you have more questions?
Yes, there was a question. There has come information saying the vaccines may only last for about 3 months. Should we be concerned about this theory? Will these vaccines be necessary to take annually?
Casey, why don't you take that first?
Yeah, I was gonna. So definitely, you must remember that this time last year, that in terms of even Kentucky, COVID hadn't even hit. And so the first clinical trials, of course, were just starting, right, in spring of last year, spring, early summer. And so they are still studying those people that who received the vaccine during the COVID trial. So what does that mean? We know that it lasts way more than 3 months, but do we know whether people will need a yearly vaccine, much like the flu vaccine? We don't know that yet. But we do know that in terms of, so far, we know that it will last longer than 3 months. We know it will last longer than 6 months. Do we know whether it'll last longer than a year? We don't know yet. And so the jury, unfortunately, is still out on that. Go ahead, Mr. Thomas there.
Yeah, I want to go back to Sandra Brooks's question, because I think her question is very important, particularly as we near the end of this discussion. Sandra asked a question: how long are we going to remain in this pandemic phase? And we ask that all the time. I think the honest answer to Sandra's question is this. Dr. Fauci reported last week when he was doing his news rounds that we should prepare on living with this through the end of this year. That we'll probably see some let up around Christmas time. And I think that's right. And I don't want to close. And again, I would like Casey to elaborate on this. I don't want to close without emphasizing that even as we become a reach herd immunity, as we reach 70-80% vaccination, that we should still do the same kind of things we've been doing for the rest of this year. We should wear our mask. We should social distance. We should use hand disinfectant and wash our hands. I think those kinds of practices that has helped us here in Kentucky, we should still continue. So I think that's the answer to Sandra's question, that again, we'll probably be living with this through the end of this year.
Or
Thank
longer.
you, Senator Thomas. You wanted to add, Ms. Bryant?
No, I was just saying, or longer. Yeah.
Or longer?
Yeah, we just don't know.
Okay, Ms. Brandy, do we have more questions?
Yes, we have a few more.
Okay, thank you.
How long after testing positive for COVID do you have to wait to be vaccinated?
There is no, I would definitely wait until I'm feeling better and have a resolve of your major symptoms. Now, you might have a lingering cough or something similar to that, but definitely resolve of your major any shortness of breath or whatever your symptoms were, the major ones, I would definitely wait until resolved for that. But remember that after you have contracted COVID, you have natural immunity for 3 to 4 months afterwards. So don't feel like you have to rush out and get the vaccine after you develop COVID. So that's to take into consideration as well.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the question? Okay, Ms. Linda, do you have more questions or another question?
Yes, another question was the fact that children age 16 and under are not being vaccinated. What is going to be done to vaccinate these children? They are starting to return back to school.
Well, as I said, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
As I said earlier, the vaccines are not approved right now for children 16 and younger. And so the plan, though, is to vaccinate everybody around them. So the teachers, for example, their parents, their grandparents. That is one way how we kind of combat that. But there are, as I said earlier, clinical trials going on right now with children 16 and under.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Brandy, you have questions?
Yes. This question is for Senator Thomas. What is the status of the unemployment insurance application processing? Will other economic assistance be forthcoming from the state? I'm sorry.
Brandy, I get that question every day. That's probably as big a question as the COVID virus. I will say this, where we are as of today, we're probably less than 30,000 cases of people who applied almost a year ago in March who still not received their unemployment. Now that's down considerably from the nearly 1 million who applied a year ago. But obviously, if you're in that 30,000, that doesn't give you any kind of relief because you still have to put food on the table. You still have to put a roof over your head. You still have to put clothes on your back. And it's just, it has its challenging moments. I will say this, Brandy, if you know someone out there that has not received their unemployment yet, please have them get in contact with me. I have had success, and I mean real success in getting those people moved faster through the system and getting their unemployment. We are now, Brandy, again, and I like to use facts and numbers. We're about 92% effective in resolving unemployment claims now. But again, there's still that 8% out there that we haven't resolved yet. And some of those, to be fair, are people who issues with how they were terminated, have not responded to all the questions that needed to be addressed. So some of that is not just the state's fault, but again, issues revolving around the individuals themselves. So that's where we are with regard to unemployment here in Kentucky. We still got a little bit of work to do, but we're making progress every day.
Thank you, Senator Thomas. Ms. Linda, do we have another question?
Yes, a question asked, how is Fayette County handling distribution of the vaccine, especially getting the second shot? And also, what is the side effect, especially for those underlying conditions such as Alzheimer's? To anyone. This question goes to anyone.
I'm going to say maybe we'll start with Ms. Allen Bryant. Let's start with her, please.
Okay. The first part of the question was about how Fayette County is handling distribution. So as Senator Thomas said earlier, and I think I may have mentioned as well, the state gets their allotment and then they give allotments to the approved vaccine distributors within each community. And so here, we have the health department, and we actually get, people think we get more doses and we don't. We have UK, Baptist Health, and of course the Walgreens and CVS's. And so that is, and they decide how many that we receive, and then we follow our 1A, 1B, and now we're starting to move into 1Cs. not at the health department. UK healthcare, though, is starting to move into some 1Cs. Those are mostly people who have those, who are fall into 1C, but then have like immunocompromised systems, like with cancer or what have you. And what was the second part of that question?
Miss Linda, she needs a second. Okay.
They wanted to know if there were any side effects for people with underlying conditions such as Alzheimer's.
Okay, so the side effects would be the same regardless of a person's underlying condition. It may seem more pronounced. For example, someone I know already has an issue where they take blood thinners, and so they already stay cold. And so if you're talking about with the shot getting chills, it seemed more pronounced because they already take blood thinners and they already stay pretty cold. So if you kind of get what I'm saying, depending on your underlying medical conditions, that may make each symptom more pronounced. So if you have, for example, some type of arthritis or some kind of fibromyalgia or some sort that causes muscle pains, then it may seem even more pronounced with the COVID vaccine. But for something like Alzheimer's, which is it's a neuro illness, you wouldn't necessarily see anything more pronounced because the side effects of the vaccine would not be causing like respiratory issues. If you have some type of shortness of breath after receiving the vaccine, then you need to head on to the ER, because that is not a common expected side effect from it.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on that? Okay, Miss Brandy, I'm going to ask for another, and then I'm going to go over to Miss Linda.
Yes, ma'am. This is for all the panelists. Where can I find information for being a vaccine site? What is the process for becoming a vaccine site?
You want to take that, Senator Thomas, or me?
Yeah, I'll take that.
Okay.
The process of becoming a vaccine site now really relies two places, with the governor's office and with your local public health department. I'm going to suggest this, Brandy. If you want to recommend a vaccine site, please give me a call. I certainly can bring that potential site to the attention of Dr. Stack or the governor, as far as that's concerned. So that's one way to look at it. I know Jim Thurman was on the phone call earlier. He's been in contact with the governor's office and has been very instrumental in bringing sites again to Shiloh Baptist Church and to the Charles Young Center. So if you have a potential site, Brandy, let me know, or give it. Let Jim know, who's the NAACP president here, and we can work with you to see if that's a viable site. I think your point's well taken in this respect, and I think Governor Beshear realizes this. You have to meet people where they are. Successful leadership requires, Brandy, that you go to where the people are if you want to address a problem and obtain a resolution. I think Governor Beshear is doing that. And so I think your question is valid. And again, if you have some suggested sites, let me know, or let Jim Thurman know, or let Chris know, who's our commissioner of social services, and we'll investigate that.
Thank you, Senator Thomas. Miss Linda Miller, you have a question?
Well, I have a statement. One person asked, it's a question, and this is to everyone. All of the reading materials are careful to say that the CDC has not given its full authority for the 2 vaccines currently in use. If they are careful to absolve themselves, what is any recourse if there is a problem down the road with taking the vaccine? I guess this be good for the senator.
Senator Thomas?
Yeah, let me unmute myself. I must say I've not heard that. I do know, listening to Dr. Rochelle Walensky, who is now the new CDC director, and listening to Dr. Fauci, who is the eminent authority on epidemiology here in America. Both of them stand by both the Pfizer vaccine, the Moderna vaccine, and the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So Dr. Walensky, who's the CDC director, certainly endorses all three vaccines. So I just have not heard and not aware of any news reports that say the CDC is absolving itself on recommending these vaccines. I find that statement incredulous.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Brandy, as we're coming down the stretch, you have a question?
Yes, this question is for Michael Holmes. What are some of the types of behavioral health symptoms that can alert family members that the isolation of being safe at home is becoming an issue?
Some of the symptoms, well, one is isolation itself. Anger, depression, maybe one. This lack of motivation of doing anything, really. I mean, it could be something as simple as taking a shower, a person cleaning up. Yeah, those are the most common symptoms that I've noticed in the clients that I work with. So just isolation, the lack of motivation of keeping up with everyday life skills, such as going to appointments, taking a walk outside, not talking to anyone. Like if a person is living in a home with someone, like say if I have a client who's living with their parents, they may not speak to them. They may not speak to their parents for a few days, may not come out their rooms, things like that. And I have one client right now who's a part of our program. And every Monday he would call, his mother would call and say that, he's not coming because he's depressed. He's just sitting in his room. He's not getting up. And a lot of his depression and isolation comes from the lack of being able to go to different places, such as the library. I know at one time he was living in Lexington, but he ended up getting kicked out of his apartment in Lexington and ended up having to move to Richmond. So now he's living in an area where there's not any people around. Like his family pretty much owns their own property. So he can't go to his next door neighbor's house anymore. He can't go to some of the public places like he used to go. He don't have access to buses like he used to be able to get around the city. So just with those different resources being cut off, it triggers those symptoms that's always been there. It just triggers those things and kind of give a right for people to be able to isolate. It gives people who like to isolate, because some people, they like to isolate. Those are some of the symptoms for them. So isolating is something that some people like to do. So if everything is closed down and if they have limited access to resources and to people as well, then it kind of give them the ticket in the past to be able to do that.
Ms. Strode, if I could follow up really quickly.
Yes, Mr. Ford, that'll be fine. Go ahead.
I think to Michael's point, I'll be very succinct in this. In Michael's work in mental and behavior issues with New Vista, we'll see something really similar in our work with substance abuse in recovery and treatment. And I know Casey, the health department, even throughout the pandemic, our work in harm reduction has not slowed down one day. It's actually increased so much because of the pandemic requires us to isolate and social distance. Well, that's kind of the exact opposite of what is needed in the communities of recovery and treatment, that connectivity, that support. And unfortunately, after a few years of seeing some real positive decreases, just for one metric, fatal overdoses, we've seen those go back up this year. So that could be a whole nother conversation for another day, an unintended consequence community impact of the pandemic. But hopefully the isolation and social distancing will ease up where we can get folks back connected again.
It's true.
And can I comment on that?
Sure, I was about to ask
Mr.
if you
Ford?
wanted to add to that.
Yes. As I mentioned before, there are two clients who I used to work with, two former clients who I had before, who I served as case manager. I just found out that they had overdoses as well. They had substance use challenges as well, along with their mental diagnosis. And there was one client, he was clean for about a year. During the time when I had been working with him, it had been about probably 8 months. He had been clean, he was on the right track. He was going to his support groups. He was working, paying rent. He was being very responsible. But I believe, as Mr. Ford said, and as I've mentioned many of times, that isolation, that's the main issue with COVID-19. You know, just the isolation.
Yes. Would anyone else like to speak on that? Okay, we're going to take another question from Miss Linda Miller, please. We're coming.
I have one question, and this is for Miss Bryant. Do you have any statistics of how many people may have had COVID and recovered with no medication or hospital stays in this area?
Mm.
I don't have any hard statistics. I mean, we can all look at the hospitals put out their weekly numbers on COVID related cases in-house and ICU beds that are filled. And that's the report that all the hospitals get out. And as an employee of the University of Kentucky, I get UKs every week. And by far, most people recover from COVID on their own. A lot of people don't even know they have COVID, and that's the problem with it. You have it and you don't have it. So you have it and you don't know it. So it's really in terms of people that need to seek emergency care or have a hospital stay or stay in the ICU. The numbers are, I don't have exact percentage, but they are low compared to the numbers of people who have had it. I mean, in Fayette County alone, we've had over 31,000 people who've tested positive for COVID, but at any one time at UK hospital, we've only had I think at the max, I've seen 250, 300 in the hospital for it. So that just kind of gives you an idea of how low it is that people have had to seek further care for it.
All right. Well, we will go. Oh, you were going to add something, Senator Thomas?
I can give statewide statistics if that'll be helpful. Okay. As of Friday, Kentucky had 278,000 has had 278,500 cases approximately of COVID. Of those number of cases, our death total has been 2,778. Okay, so you see, we've been around 1% of all people who've had COVID have died here in Kentucky. And our positivity rate now here in Kentucky has dipped below 5%. So we're on the downward side of positivity. And again, a lot of that is a result of our aggressiveness here in this state and getting people vaccinated. Those are statewide statistics.
And Senator Thomas, would you say that even though we're on a downward side, we still have to follow our CDC guidelines? Because when people hear we're down, oh, we can go and have a party, we can have family over, and we're hearing things like that. Would you all please address that?
Well, I'll say what I said already. Even as we move, by the end of this year toward herd immunity, you still have to, one, wear your mask.
Yes.
Two, you have to social distance.
Yes.
Three, you have to wash your hands and use hand disinfectant.
Yes.
Casey, you want to have the last word on that?
what I was just biting at the bit. No, please do not let up. What happens is that people get lulled into complacency, and that's when we start to see our numbers go back up. So please, as Reginald Thomas said, please, please, please do not let up on all the precautions that you've had, and staying within your household, not your family members, because see, we all live in different households, but stay in your household.
Well, I will say that Pastor Strode and I have not been inside of a restaurant since March. Could someone please address that? You know, we want to keep our businesses in business. We know they have to make a living. But what about when people say, well, you know, they have us distanced and they're following CDC guidelines. Can a restaurant actually follow CDC guidelines? We're not talking about keeping them in business and trying to support them because they have a livelihood. Let's address that just shortly.
Let me address that because obviously I get that from both ends.
All right.
I want to say this to you and Pastor Strode, Shelby.
Okay.
In December, I met with many members of the Lexington Restaurant Association. Okay. I met with several Lexington restaurateurs. And of course, they were very concerned about the fact that, you know, they were still not allowed to do dine-in, that they had to do carry out and or do patio service. And right after meeting with them, Governor Beshear did decide to relax the restrictions.
Right.
And allow dining capacity. Here in Fayette County now it's about 50%. And so we, as I said, we've not seen any increase here in the state with the relaxation of dining restrictions. So again, I would say to everyone that, you know, particularly if you've been fully vaccinated, that I think it's safe to go out if that's your choice and go dining again. You got to wear your mask. They're at 50% capacity. You should not take off your mask except to eat. But again, I think it's okay for those who want to go out and dine again.
Okay, good to hear that. Good to hear that.
With people from your own household.
Well, yes, thank you for adding that, with people from your own household. I will ask Ms. Brandy, you have another question, and then we're going to go on to our final remarks, please.
Yes, ma'am. This question says, I'm sorry. If you have had COVID and recovered, are there any underlying conditions that you are aware of?
Okay, Ms. Casey Allen Bryant, would you like to address that? Do you need it read again?
Yes, please.
Ms. Brandy, could you read the question again, please?
Yes. If you have had COVID and recovered, are there any underlying conditions that you are aware of?
That people from lingering, I'm assuming this person is asking questions about lingering effects of COVID. Yes, people do. So COVID mostly, I mean, it does affect as I said, from the head or to the footer, you know, that's from, but what it mostly does is affects your lungs. And so I do see people with lingering effects with their lungs, such as lingering cough, some shortness of breath. I've read though some research, but people have had lingering effects with their heart. I mean, really, it depends on the individual. And how the COVID actually affected their bodies and what kind of other effects they had because of COVID. I mean, you may have someone who is a severe diabetic, and because of their body fighting COVID, then their blood sugar was uncontrolled. And so now they're having issues maybe with their kidneys, or they're having issues with their blood flow to their limbs. So yes, there have been a variety of lingering effects related to COVID. And so I will say this in my final comment, that we have been hesitant about the COVID vaccine. I mean, I've received it. I have had my father receive it. He's over 70. I've signed up my husband. He's an essential worker in 1C. And when it comes time, I will have my children vaccinated, because I believe that what is unknown about the vaccine does not outweigh what could happen to them
Mhm.
or our family members if we spread COVID to them.
Thank you. And I'm going to go to Mr. Michael Holmes for his final remarks, please.
Well, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to say. Is it another question or?
No, there is not a question. We're going to wrap it up. And if you don't have
Okay.
any final remarks, this is fine too. Just wondered if you'd like
Oh,
to.
no, I definitely do. I definitely do. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a question. Well, I just want to thank you all for, allowing me to be a part of the panel and to talk about mental health and how important it is. And I do want to question that you asked, First Lady.
Okay, there's something
Strode,
going on. Okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Somehow I don't know if it's your bandwidth or something is going on. I'm going to go on to Mr. Chris Ford and then come back to you if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Chris Ford, your final remarks, please.
I just want to say thank you so much to St. Paul AME Church for this community event. I think it was very helpful. I also want to salute not only St. Paul, but the faith community, and particularly the Black faith community in Lexington. We talked about the clinics that are going to be happening at Shiloh and Bracktown. Consolidated has just been a godsend to the community, working with the health department on their many clinics. I'm really appreciative of that. On a personal note, my grandmother and my aunt, who reside in Tallahassee, Florida, both of their shots at Bethel AME Church in Tallahassee, my home church. And that's going to allow me to get home sometime soon. So I just thank the Black church community in St. Paul for all that you're doing and for having us this evening.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ford. I want Senator Thomas to be our last speaker to give the closing remarks. So I'm going to go back to Michael. Would you give us your closing remark, please?
Okay, well, I'll start over again. Thank you to everyone for allowing me to be here, a part of the panel, and to discuss mental health. And I believe that the Black community, I could see an increase in the rate of people being more accepted when it comes to mental health services. And I think initially, the Black community wasn't very open to mental health services because we didn't see a lot of us. I think as Black mental health counselors and social workers, as that rate increase, I think the Black community will be more accepting towards mental health services.
Very good point. Very good point. Thank you. And we're going to have closing remarks by our own senator. Oh, I'm so sorry. She gave her remarks first. Ms. Bryant, I think when you spoke, you said that you were giving your closing remarks. Yes, that's what I thought. So we're going to end this with our very own Senator Reginald Thomas. Would you give us your closing remarks, please?
Well, it's almost 7 o'clock, and I'm sure everybody's ready to zoom out. But again, I want to thank you and Reverend Strode. This was a great idea. Both you had, Shelby, and very informative. This was an excellent panel discussion. Even I learned a lot. So I want to thank you again. I want to thank Sister Bessie Jackson.
Yes.
And her two daughters, Priscilla and Paula, for organizing this. This was very, very informative to all of us. And again, I just think I want to reiterate what everybody has said, starting with Chris. Please get vaccinated. And Casey, please continue to follow the CDC guidelines of wearing masks, social distancing, washing hands. I think if we all do these things, this is the summation of what we've talked about for the last 2 hours. If we all do these things, Sister Strode, we will beat this virus. We will conquer COVID-19, and we can get back to some sense of normalcy in our lives.
Thank you. Thank you so much, all of you. We really can't thank you enough. You have done a tremendous job. So I'm going to give you a hand of applause for all the people who are listening. Help me out, Pastor Strode. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. We can't thank you enough. But we cannot, wonderful job. You've done an excellent job. We cannot leave without hearing from our chairman of our health commission at Historic St. Paul AME Church, and that's Miss Ella Jean Smith. We will have remarks from her.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome.
Should I say good evening or good afternoon? But whatever it is, greetings. On behalf of Historic St. Paul AME Church, Lexington, Kentucky, we want to give a special thanks to the panelists and thank you all for saying yes when I called you. It has been wonderful working with Sister Strode, Mrs. Strode, the First Lady.
God bless you.
Our moderator, and also wonderful working with Miss Bessie Jackson, who was the coordinator of this program. And I cannot leave out our technical team, because without them, we wouldn't be Zooming.
That's right.
This has been a wonderful and informative event, forum, program, and the pastor will come to us next, the Reverend Dr. Robert A. Strode.
Yay! Pastor Strode.
Greetings and blessings. Thank you, Sister Ella Jean, for taking care of our health commission.
Amen.
Thank you, Sister Bessie Jackson, when I gave the challenge for you to lead it. You've done a great job. Thank the Zoom team for putting this together. And we are so appreciative of the panelists and this great moderator, Sister Strode, who's done a great job.
Thank you.
We appreciate all that's been done. And I know the hour is late. And it was so good to see all of the panelists. You acquitted yourselves well.
Amen.
And I feel inspired that we're going to get through this together. And we thank God for the information that we have through this panel discussion and this community forum. And I got a lot of text messages while the forum was going on for across the connection, across the United States. People are watching it and they said they enjoyed it.
Yes.
And we appreciate all that you've done. And I hope you have a good night tonight. And thank you all again for your work.
Thank you, Pastor Strode.
You're welcome.
All right. We have concluded our program. I guess we can have open mic.